Hey everyone, welcome back to BrowncoatNerd. Yes, I know, yet another video on grips, at least this time is not on a Beretta. Today we're going to be looking at the Sig Sauer E2 grip upgrade kit for the Sig P226 DAK. Now that is the double action Kellerman. As you may have noticed, we have a hammer, it's just it's bobbed, and we have no decocker. And of course all of these have been safety checked. I say all of these, so I've got a few other out here I was getting ready to make videos on too. However, I might not do that because I'm realizing how crappy my voice sounds. I'm kind of getting over a cold, I think, and allergies were hitting me out of nowhere, so I apologize for my voice, everyone, but I needed to get this video done because I need to put something out for tomorrow. I already skipped 1 week. Anyhow, so basically how this all started, I put out a review on this quite a while ago. I'm sure many of you have seen. This is a U.S. government surplus 226. That's why it has the double action Kellerman trigger or DAK. And way back when I wanted to upgrade the grips on this, and I had actually come across these E2 grips, really liked them, but they were specifically listed as only working for the double action / single action, and that they did not work for the DAK trigger setup. And I do believe I think they might have these for the single action only. So I was kind of bummed out about that, and I actually ended up getting these cool hand grips, these G10 cool hand grips. Also did a video on these quite a while ago. They weren't very expensive. They were fairly cheap, especially for G10 grips. Look rather funky. I think I purchased these back in like 2019 or 2020. I may have just got done watching The Tiger King. Can we just take a step back and look back at 2019 and 2020 and how crazy those years were? And I feel like the Tiger King documentary was just the cherry on top that we all needed. Anyways, it actually served a purpose. I had a quick access safe next to my bed in my bedroom, and the Sig 226 here was my nightstand gun. So my thinking was, practicality over, coolness. So I kind of wanted a high-vis grip. That was the whole idea behind that. Put these on there, and I was fairly happy with them. I believe I gave them a pretty good review on my video that I did on them. However, over time, I just realized they were a little bit thicker than the standard traditional factory grips I had for these. And I was kind of like, is that high-vis, really worth it? And then I upgraded my nightstand safe, so it now has a light in there. No longer really an issue. So I was just kind of like, blah, let's get those off. So I'd actually put on the grips, which were just these old guys. And I really had no complaints about the grips. They fit nice in my hand. I have medium to small size hands. But recently, with changing out a lot of the grips of my guns, especially with the lock grips, I was like, okay, there really is a big improvement that can be made to your handgun with grips. The gun can feel completely different in your hands with the right set of grips, which can make a huge improvement. So I set about looking for some G10 grips. Decided to step up above, the cool hand grips a little bit. Once again, I didn't really have any complaints on them. But really the only other option I was seeing out there were the Hogue G10 grips. And I believe those are technically also the same factory G10 grips that come on their, their Elite model. Anyhow, those really aren't any thinner. They come in some cool color options, which once again is just, cool looking. It's not really an added benefit. And they're freaking expensive, like anywhere from like $80 to $110. So like I said, there wasn't really any real benefit. In my search for different grips, like these E2 grips kept popping up, and I was like, I wish I could get those for this gun. Even to the point where I was thinking about converting this back to, or not back to, but converting it to double action, single action, adding the little decocker. But at one point in my search, I happened across an image that showed these grips, but it had in quotations for the DAK. I got very excited. And I saw that Sig was offering them on their website. One thing I have to say, when I saw that they were offering a specific E2 grip for the DAK, I kind of assumed they would have filled this in. but the grip housing itself is not any different from the E2 grips that you get on your double action, single action 226s. So I was a little bummed out about that, but I've also gotten used to living with it. So what the kit comes with, it'll come with the grip. It'll come with like a little mainspring shoe or boot that the mainspring rests in. I forget, I believe it's taller than the original one or it's shorter than the original one. Either way, obviously it's different from the original one. And you also get that mainspring strut. Now that was the holdup into these E2 grips not working on the double action Kellerman. I guess the DAK has a different strut than the double action single action. And then if you were to buy one of these for double action single action, it would come with all of that stuff. But it would also come with a new, slimmer decocking lever as well. This being a DAK, obviously it did not come with that. And then, of course, both tools also do come with a little grip remover. As you may notice, there's no screw holes. Basically, just kind of clamshells on there. I did not fish out the tool before starting this video. And you don't really necessarily need it, but it's just basically like a plastic tee that you put in there, and then you turn it sideways, and the tips of the tee push out on this grip, allowing you to pull it off. And I've seen people just kind of like stick their fingers down in there and jam it up. So you don't necessarily need the tool. Tool does make it easier though. So that's what you get. These grips, here's the other crazy part about it. Like the other grips I was looking at, not really a huge benefit to the ergonomics of the gun. And I'm looking to spend around $90. These grips, I think, look good. Huge ergonomic upgrade. And they're Sig branded. Sig's pretty proud of their stuff. Bought it off the Sig website. It was still $40. I'm sure I paid shipping and handling or whatever. But yeah, $40. I was surprised. And the price is the same for both the DAK grip kit as well as the double action, single action grip kit. When I ordered this, it had it listed as only having like 4 or 6 left in stock. This box, I've kind of gotten jostled around. I try not to, yeah. But it was dusty. The box was literally dusty, so I don't know how long they've had these. I meant to check the website too to see if they've restocked. But I was over the world about being able to get these E2 grips for the DAK because that's very much what I wanted. Now the big change on the DAK and why, or excuse me, the big change on the E2 grips and why you have to change out the strut, the mainspring strut, is they come in quite a bit more. Right up here. Actually, let me get up the factory grips. So much so that your mainspring would interfere with these grips if you did not change out that strut and the boot that the mainspring sits in. So you can kind of see here, it's not the best because it doesn't look like that much, but it's a ton. It is just brought in a ton right there. Now, I will also say that I've seen a few people reviewing these and they actually didn't like it, and I think they have larger hands. They felt it put their webbing like almost too far forward, put their trigger finger further forward, cannot talk, put their trigger finger further forward than they wanted. But for me, once again, I have medium to small size hands. I'm not ashamed to admit it. This is freaking perfect. Now, to begin with, the factory grips, I was never like, oh my god, these things are fat or uncomfortable or anything like that. I really had no issues. Actually quite liked them. The only reason I changed them out is because I wanted something with a bright color for my old nightstand safe. Now, originally, too, I will bring up, people are going to be like, well, why didn't you get Lock Grips? You love Lock Grips so much. Well, I would have, but Lock Grips does not make any grips for these. So, stuck with the Sig brand. It does look, I will admit, it looks a little goofy, some might say, with that right there. But, I mean, just, if you think it looks goofy, just hold one of them. And then it's like, okay, these are really, really nice. Another thing to keep in mind, once again, I have medium to small size hands, so I don't think it's going to affect me too much. But I do see some people complaining, first of all, in general, on this 226 about this, and then even more so with the E2 grips, is that if they ride too high on the grip, they're going to hit your slide lock. That's this lever right here. And with these E2 grips, I feel like that slide lock kind of sticks out a little bit more. They do make a smaller one, and I'm kind of tempted to look into getting that now with these grips on there. So be aware of that. If you have fat sausage hands, that might be something that the E2 grip will make the situation worse if you do tend to hit it, or maybe you don't, but now you do with the E2 grip. Keep that in mind. And like I said, they do sell. They don't smell. Well, maybe they do smell them before they sell them. Wow, this video is turning weird. It's the allergy medicine, I promise. But they do sell smaller slide lock levers too that kind of will, I think, pull it in a little bit more out of your way. So me with the medium to small size hands, I'm even considering doing that. Get a look on that side there. So weight comparisons between the two grips. I think the biggest difference in the weight is going to be the screws, because the original grips, obviously you have to use screws. With these grips, you do not. So the E2 grips that we have here, along with the mainspring boot and the mainspring strut, oh lord, it's going to be a long one. The weight of those three items, does that add up right? Sure, who cares? Came to 1.3 ounces. And then with the factory grips and the factory mainspring boot, the mainspring strut, and the screws, since you do have to use those with the factory grips, that came to 1.6 ounces. I'm willing to bet that extra 0.3 ounces is the screws. So really no difference on the weight there. Thickness. Now, using the cheapest digital calipers I could find on Amazon, I did kind of try to get an average thickness of these grips here. Now with the E2s, the thickness varied anywhere from 33.4 millimeters to 34 millimeters. With the Sig stock grips, the thickness measured anywhere from 33.8 millimeters to 34 millimeters. Meaning on average, this is only about 0.4 millimeters thinner than the stock grip. However, I have to say, when you're holding it, it does feel quite a bit thinner than the stock grips. And I think what that is this grip tapers down. Let's see here. Yeah, it tapers down a little quicker than your stock grips. So the high point is basically pretty much the same thickness as your stock grips, but the overall across the plane here is thinner because it comes down quite a bit sooner than your stock grips. That made sense to me, but obviously I can't even talk, so I hope that conveyed across to you guys. The length from front to back, because obviously we are bringing in this back arch here quite a bit. Let's see, the E2 front to back, in the top section of the gun here, from front to back, was right around 46.3 millimeters. And on the stock 226 grips, this measurement area right here was right around 52.9 millimeters. So pretty big change. And then at the bottom, the E2 grips, they're right around 51.5 millimeters. And then the stock ones were 52.8. So still a little bit thinner front to back down here than the stock ones as well. Huge difference up here, obviously. Now, let me wipe some of that oil off there. Just recently cleaned this up. Took it out shooting with these grips. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I know it's bad. It's my nightstand gun, and it's been a while since I've shot it. Especially with the stock grips on it, because I've had those cool hand grips on it for quite a while. But it's even been a little while since I've shot it with those grips. So I did take this out, shot this. I've done a few other modifications to the Sig as well since I've reviewed it with you guys. I will be putting out videos on that. It's kind of like, I forgot this was in my nightstand. I know, horrible. And so I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this gun. I love this gun. I want to do more to this gun. So we're kind of in the process of doing that. So I took it out to also test some of the other things I've done to this. But with these grips, this gun just felt great in my hands. I am very, very happy with the overall improved feeling from changing from the original grips to these grips. And also the fact that it was only $40. And this is actual Sig branded. That really blew my mind that the price was down so low on those. Now, another thing I was curious about, since we didn't change out the mainspring in this gun, but we did change kind of the height in which it was sitting and the mainspring. It got me wondering if there was going to be any effect on the trigger pull weight. Also, because I am getting ready to play around with changing out this mainspring, which with it being a DAK kind of adds some problems, but we'll see if we are able to work that out or not. I wanted to make sure I know what caused my trigger weight to change. So before I put on these grips and changed out those internal mainspring parts, I went ahead and got my trigger pull gauge out, because I don't believe I had that when I did my first review of this gun, and checked out the trigger weight. Now, in case you guys aren't wondering, these DAK triggers are really weird. Again, we are clear. So it's double action only, but this gun still has 2 different trigger pull weights. I know, it's freaking voodoo, but... So, initially here with our long trigger pull, when we're starting out here, you've got a long, but fairly soft trigger pull. Now, before I changed out these grips, that trigger weight measured, after an average of 5 pulls, it was right around 6 pounds, 11 ounces. Gun fires, we let out the trigger, click, there's our reset. But there's 2 resets on this gun. That's why it has 2 trigger pulls. So I'll just show you again. So there was 1 click. There's another click. Now the second click, again, that's going to be the long but soft trigger. So this would be the 6 pound, 11 ounce trigger pull. But if we go to that first reset, this is the heavy trigger. So it's very weird that the closer reset trigger on this is the heavier one. It's like the complete opposite of double action, single action. So with the stock mainspring parts, the first reset trigger pull, which is much heavier, was an average of 9 pounds, 15 ounces. Now then, once I changed all of these out, I went ahead and checked that again, and I didn't really think there's going to be any change, but like I said, I'm getting ready to change out the mainspring here, and it's a very subtle change in the poundage of mainspring, so I'm wanting to keep really good close track of anything that affects the trigger pull weight. So after installing the new mainspring boot and strut, I tested it out again, and so the long double action pull here, that measured out an average of 5 pulls to 5 pounds, 12 ounces. Again, originally it was 6 pounds, 11 ounces. So like a 1 pound difference there. And that blew my mind. And then the short reset, that guy there, that went down to 7 pounds, 7 ounces, where originally it was 9 pounds, 15 ounces. I redid an average trigger pull, especially on the heavier trigger pull, just to make sure I wasn't messing anything up. And I kept roughly getting that trigger pull weight. And just so you guys know, the tool I use is kind of their cheap basic one, but the Lineman trigger pull gauge here. Oh, I just hit the stand, didn't I? Sorry, guys. And I have said in the past that I feel like I get some fairly light trigger pull readings out of that, or maybe I'm just lucky. But like I said, that was using the same gauge both times I did the trigger pull with the original mainspring parts and with the E2 mainspring parts. So I'm glad I did that. I was not really expecting anything, but just kind of give myself own peace of mind as I dive into trying to lighten up the trigger a little bit. I wanted to make sure what was going on. So I was impressed by that. So another added bonus of these E2 grips, at least in my case on the DAK, it appears to have lightened up that trigger pull some, which is a very welcome thing, because when I originally bought this gun, I was just going to convert it to double action, single action. But then as I got it and shot it and tried to explain this to friends, and they're like, dude, no, you're an idiot. You're just explaining double action, single action. I'm like, no, I'm not. and then they take it out and shoot it, and they see what I'm talking about, and they're like, this is really weird, crazy, and bizarre. It's kind of grown on me, so I think I'm going to keep the DAK trigger system, and just try to work with some, see what I can do. Again, this is my home defense gun, so I don't need a super light competition trigger in there. Actually, I don't want that. So, yeah, I was very happy with that little added bonus of it lightening up the trigger. I really wasn't expecting that. I suspected it might have a little bit of effect, but I was not imagining that much of a jump, especially with that first reset, the really stiff one from 9 pounds 15 ounces down to 7 pounds 7 ounces. I was blown away. And just so you guys know, that wasn't even the lowest average I got. This is actually kind of more towards the higher average that I got. And I used this one just so you guys didn't think I was full of BS. Make it a little bit more realistic or believable, but that's what happened. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring this to you guys. If any of you out there own a DAK and you're getting sick of your grips, there are E2 grips out there that will work with the DAK trigger system. An added bonus, it appears it lightens the trigger pull a little bit, which is awesome. Also, if you're not too gun savvy and you're like, oh, I just want to change out the grips, I don't want to mess with changing out the mainspring or anything like that. Guys, I feel you, I hear you, I'm kind of the same way. This is probably one of the easiest mainsprings to change out. You don't even punch out any pins. All you do, of course, you can thank YouTube, I can't really show you. I might put out a video on Rumble showing that if people are really concerned. But there still are a few videos out there floating around that can show you. But you just take the grips off. Your mainspring is right back here exposed, and it sits in that little plastic boot. Here. Let you know what you'll be looking at here. So you got a spring. See, it's hollowed out here towards the top just a little bit, and it sits in this boot. And this boot's got two little metal, see, it's got those ears on it. It's got two little metal slots it just sits in, and that spring is keeping it pushed down in those slots. You just take a punch. Some people say take a screwdriver. I'd say take a punch because it's going to chew up this plastic a little less. This plastic is like the softest freaking plastic ever. Flathead screwdrivers kind of tend to cut in there more. You can do it. As you can see, that's what I originally started to do. But I think a punch will just kind of mar it up a little bit less. You just take that punch, push up, and then lift out. And then your spring comes out, which will be inside the strut. Getting the strut up in there, that, I promise you, you're going to let a couple cuss words slip. Just kind of take a close eye on it before you remove anything. Maybe take a few pictures. That's what I did, and I still ran into a bit of an issue with it. When I first put this up in there, I was like, okay, yeah, that's the right spot. I wiggled it around, is moving the hammer like they say in all the videos. I put everything back together, and then I'm pulling the trigger, and the hammer's just like, brr, brr. And I'm like, awesome, I just broke my gun putting stupid grips on it. But, I just let out a few cuss words, played around with it a little bit, and I finally got it in that right notch. So you will get there. Don't try to do this upgrade like right before you got to the range or anything, because then you will get pissed off and frustrated. But this is a very easy upgrade. Like I said, that's the hardest part, is getting that strut up in there. But you just fish around with it. You're going to get it. As long as you try, you are going to get it. And yeah, the E2 grips, that was the one with the much thinner boot. Now I really wish I had that tool so I could just pop it off real quick and show you guys. But I don't. Once again, there's plenty of videos out there. Okay, the other screw's in there. I have not seen any videos on these E2 grips for the DAK, which is probably part of the reason I didn't realize it existed, so I definitely wanted to get this out for you guys, so you do know it existed. So, like I said, we got a few more upgrades coming to this gun. Some I've already done. Mainspring, guide rod, that might not be the original barrel. And I'm going to play with the mainspring, and then we're going to change out the sights. At that point, we'll probably call it a day. So, alright guys, that is almost it. One more thing, since those few of you that managed to stay until the end, you get a sneak peek at next week's video. It's not going to be on grips. Don't worry. We're going back to surplus. However, this time, I'm a little excited about it. It is surplus, but there's your hint. Hopefully my mic is catching back up in volume and you can hear me now. This particular one comes to us, if I can bounce it up without falling over, from, I believe it was the North Carolina Department of Corrections. So yeah, hopefully I will have all of my info put together for this one and have that video out to you guys next. All right. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, even in the smallest bit, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel. And other than that, stay safe and stay shiny.